It's crime o'clock, baby!
It's
Hollywood may be filled with red carpets and flashing cameras, but behind the bright lights, some celebrities have had their fair share of run-ins with the law. From shocking arrests to unbelievable courtroom dramas, these stars have taken scandal to a whole new level and left the world stunned in the process. Think you know all the celebrity dirt? Wait until you see who made our list of the top 10 shocking celebrity arrests. Get ready, because this one is packed with wild moments, jaw-dropping stories, and a few surprises that might change how you see these stars forever.
Now the person's allowed to be here?
The man, the myth, the legend, the one whose raspy voice brought us X Gonna Give It To Ya, DMX, for lack of a better word, is simply a hip-hop icon. But hip-hop aside, little did we know X was gonna give it to the legal system big time. You see, DMX, whose real name is Earl Simmons, was one of the rawest rappers to ever grace the stage, and he had ties to some serious names in the industry, including none other than Sean Diddy Combs. Yes, Diddy, the man with a Rolodex of rap icons, and DMX was firmly in there. But the shockwaves hit hard in 2017 when DMX was arrested for tax evasion. Yeah, I guess you were expecting something else, right? Well, it turns out, while DMX was barking on tracks, he was allegedly dodging Uncle Sam to the tune of $1.7 million.
Okay, sir, you've got 4 separate probation violation matters that are before the court this evening.
DMX, who we thought had a rough rider edge, was now facing hard time. Did any of us see this coming? Probably not. Who would have thought that DMX's downfall would involve numbers and not a flashy, dramatic chaos his image portrayed? And DMX himself? Well, true to his nature, he said the system was tricking him and wasn't exactly remorseful. But in the end, he was sentenced to 1 year in prison. Classic X. But really, what is more shocking? DMX and tax fraud, or Chris Brown and, well, you know what's next, right? Oh, we're going there. Where do we begin? This man went from being the smooth-talking R&B heartthrob with moves that had the world convinced he was the next Michael Jackson, to someone who can't seem to stay away from trouble. His rise to fame was meteoric, singing alongside the likes of Diddy, collaborating with the biggest names in the industry, but his personal life, ooh buddy. The most infamous moment came in 2009 when Chris was arrested for assaulting Rihanna, his then girlfriend. The world was stunned. Not Chris Brown, not the guy who serenaded us with You and Run It.
Grabs my nuts, and when she do that, I bite her arm, I think, as I'm driving, because I'm still trying to drive. And it's just like a petty, like, stupid fight.
This was his first major sign that there was a darker side to him. The brutal photos of Rihanna's injuries hit the internet, and it was clear Chris wasn't the charming performer we thought we all knew. Crazily enough, the legal issues didn't stop there.
Imposition of sentence is suspended. You are going to be placed on formal felony probation for a period of 60 months.
Chris kept finding himself in hot water. From probation violations and fights to rehab stints, you name it, he seemed to have his hands in it. Yet through all of this, the man kept making music, topping charts, as if nothing had happened. It was a confusing time for fans who were torn between his talent and the tumultuous personal life of Chris Brown. But let's rewind the clock a bit. Does anyone remember Winona Ryder's legendary shoplifting scandal? That's the next one, and it was a wild ride. Winona Ryder, the 90s indie queen who gave us unforgettable performances in Edward Scissorhands and Girl Interrupted. She was the cool, quirky girl that everyone loved, but in 2001, Hollywood was blindsided when Winona was arrested for shoplifting.
Court required the defendant to surrender her driver's license, and that should the defendant seek to have her license reinstated earlier than a year, she would be...
Yes, Winona Ryder, one of the biggest stars of the decade, was caught red-handed
goods and wanders around the store. The camera operator starts to notice there's one place she's not visiting.
It felt unreal. How could someone who seemed to have it all end up in such a bizarre situation? Her trial was a media circus, and in 2002 she was convicted of felony theft and vandalism. Winona was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 480 hours of community service, and a $10,000 fine. For years, she faded from the spotlight, with many wondering if she'd ever reclaim her place in Hollywood. But Winona did what she does best. She came back, and in a big way. Her role as Joyce Byers in Stranger Things launched her back into our hearts, reminding us all why we loved her in the first place. She rebuilt herself, stronger and more iconic than ever. It was a fall from grace, but to her credit, Winona eventually made a comeback, though the shadow of that sax incident still lingers. But speaking of dark shadows and legal drama, the next story gets really dark. Have you ever heard of Phil Spector? Well, it's about to get a lot more serious. Phil Spector was a name once synonymous with musical genius. He produced some of the biggest hits of the 60s, from Be My Baby to You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling. He was the pioneer of the wall of sound, and his influence on the music industry was undeniable. But in the 2000s, his reputation was about to take a sinister turn. In 2003, the world was stunned when Spector was arrested for the murder of actress Lana Clarkson. Clarkson was found dead in Spector's mansion, and while he claimed it was an accidental suicide, the evidence said otherwise. The trial dragged on for years, with the music icon maintaining his innocence throughout, but in 2009, he was convicted of second-degree murder.
The jury in the above entitled action find the defendant, Philip Spector, guilty of the crime of second-degree murder of Lana Clarkson.
His sentence? 19 years to life in prison. It was a shocking downfall for a man who once stood at the top of the music world. Spector died in prison in 2021, leaving behind a complicated legacy, one of innovation and brilliance marred by his tragic and violent end. And now, onto someone a bit lighter. Reese Witherspoon, America's sweetheart, found herself in hot water too, but not for anything quite as grim. Legally blonde herself, Reese Witherspoon was the ultimate girl next door turned Hollywood powerhouse, winning hearts and Oscars alike. But in 2013, Reese had a run-in with the law that had everyone doing a double take. It all went down in Atlanta when Reese and her husband, Jim Toth, were pulled over for suspicion of drunk driving. While Jim was the one behind the wheel, Reese's actions were what made the headlines. After stepping out of the car, she got a little, let's say, feisty with the police officer. She pulled the classic line, "Do you know my name? You're about to find out who I am." Not the Reese we're used to, right?
Know my name, sir?
Don't need to know.
You don't need to know my name?
Not quite yet. I'll get that
really?
information.
Okay. You're about to find out who I am.
The arrest resulted in her being charged with disorderly conduct, and she later admitted she was embarrassed about the whole situation. But in true Reese fashion, she owned it, apologized, and moved on.
It's one of those nights, we went out to dinner in Atlanta and we had one too many glasses of wine. We thought we were fine to drive and we absolutely were not. And we are so sorry. And
next up, none other than the king of cool himself, Matthew McConaughey. Yes, even he had his moment with the law, and trust me, this one's a good story. The laid-back Texan we all love, Matthew has done it all. From rom-com king to Oscar winner, he's got that effortless charm. But back in 1999, McConaughey made headlines for something far from his usual smooth-talking roles. One night in Austin, Texas, the actor was arrested after a noise complaint led police to his house. When they arrived, they found Matthew in true McConaughey fashion, completely naked and playing the bongos. You heard that right, the bongos. To make it even better, there was a strong scent of marijuana in the air, which did not help his case. He was charged with marijuana possession and resisting transportation, but the drug charges were later dropped, and he just paid a fine for the noise. In the end, McConaughey simply laughed it off. In fact, he actually embraced it, saying it was one of the best nights of his life. Only he could turn an arrest into a cool story, am I right? But not every star handled their arrest with such zen vibes. Mel Gibson, for example, went down a much darker road. His infamous 2006 arrest? Well, that's the next one, and buckle up. If there's one thing we can all agree on, Mel Gibson is simply a powerhouse in Hollywood. Known for his roles in Braveheart and Mad Max, the man is a national icon and generally loved by everyone. But behind that tough guy exterior lies a scandal that truly shocked many. In 2006, Gibson was arrested for DUI in Malibu after being pulled over for speeding. But it wasn't just the driving under the influence that caught the world's attention. It was his explosive behavior during the arrest. As the officer approached, Gibson unleashed a tirade of anti-Semitic slurs, leaving everyone stunned. The man even went on to blame Jews for all the wars in the world. Talk about a plot twist. The incident was a jaw-dropper and led to widespread backlash, condemnation from peers, and a steep decline in his career. Gibson later issued an apology claiming he had been struggling with alcoholism, but the damage was done and his reputation took quite a massive hit. But here's the crazy thing. You would think that Gibson's run-ins with the law would be a cautionary tale for other stars. And then we have someone like Mark Wahlberg, who has his own shocking history. This one is a real eye-opener. Today, we know Mark Wahlberg as the ripped action star, producer, and generally all-around Hollywood heavyweight. But back in the 80s, Mark wasn't always the poster boy for success. In fact, his past is far more troubled than you would expect. At just 16 years old, Wahlberg was arrested for assault after a violent altercation in Boston where he attacked 2 Vietnamese men, leaving one partially blind. And to make things worse, the attack was racially motivated, and Wahlberg was charged with attempted murder, although he eventually pleaded guilty to felony assault. He ended up serving 45 days of a 2-year sentence in prison. Since then, Wahlberg has spoken openly about his troubled past, often reflecting on how his time behind bars motivated him to turn his life around. And to be fair, it actually worked, as he really rebuilt his life, launching a music career with the Funky Bunch and then finding serious success in acting. But speaking of stars with complicated pasts, this next name needs no introduction. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, faced legal battles that were as shocking as they were heartbreaking. You know the story, but what about the details? Well, they're coming right up. From Thriller to Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, was a global icon, adored by millions for his unmatched talent. But beneath the glittering moonwalk and legendary hits, Jackson's life was plagued by controversy, with the most shocking moment coming in 2003 when he was arrested on child molestation charges. In a media frenzy that dominated headlines worldwide, Jackson was accused of inappropriate behavior with a young boy, a claim that shocked the world. The image of Michael Jackson in handcuffs was surreal for fans who'd grown up idolizing him. The trial was even worse and soon became a spectacle, filled with bizarre testimonies and surreal courtroom moments. After months of legal battles, in 2005, Jackson was acquitted of all charges, but the shadow of those allegations lingered, forever tarnishing his legacy. Despite the acquittal, the case remains a dark chapter in the life of one of music's greatest icons. Today, Jackson's story is a complex mix of brilliance and tragedy, leaving fans to reconcile the man with the myth.
He did it to try and belittle me, to try to take away my pride, but I went through the whole system with them.
And speaking of public spectacles, few legal sagas have ever matched the sheer magnitude of O.J. Simpson's trial. Trust me, that one's coming up next, and it changed the game entirely. If you don't know him, then you missed quite a lot. O.J. Simpson was one of the most infamous names in modern history. A former NFL star, actor, and beloved public figure, his fall from grace was so shocking it still reverberates to this day. The trial of the century, as it came to be known, was a media circus like no other. In 1994, Simpson was arrested and charged with the brutal murders of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman T. The car chase in that infamous white Bronco, broadcast live across the nation, gripped millions. People couldn't believe it. How could OJ, a football legend and Hollywood star, be involved in something so horrific? The trial was a roller coaster of emotion with dramatic courtroom moments, including the famous glove debacle. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. In 1995, Simpson was shockingly found not guilty of the murders, despite what many believed to be overwhelming evidence. But that wasn't the end. Years later, a civil court found him liable for the deaths, and in 2008, Simpson was arrested again for an armed robbery in Las Vegas, earning him 33 years in prison. It was an insane ride as the OJ saga redefined celebrity scandals. It was the perfect storm of fame, race, and tragedy, leaving an indelible mark on pop culture. It's a story that still haunts, reminding us of how fast fortunes can turn, and how justice can be elusive, even in the brightest of spotlights. And there you have it, folks, the top 10 shocking celebrity arrests that left us all gasping in disbelief. From jaw-dropping falls from grace to courtroom showdowns, these stars have seen their shiny reputations take a hit, and in many cases, never fully recover. Whether it was a wild night that went too far or darker scandals that shook us to the core, these celebrities have all made headlines for the wrong reasons. But it's safe to say their arrests will go down in pop culture history, reminding us that fame can't always shield you from the law. So what do you think? Did these stars deserve what came their way? Or did they just get caught up in the spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you love this dive into Hollywood's most scandalous moments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more jaw-dropping stories from the world of fame and fortune. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the brightest stars fall the hardest. I hope to see you in the next video.